Daylight savings, yeah.
Daylight savings.
Yeah, relative.
Just for you, Clay.
We've already saved used half of our savings.
Hey, today is Monday, March 13th. This is an Oscoda Township regular board meeting. Sorry we're starting a little bit late, but I'd like to call the meeting to order at 6:59. We will start with the Pledge of Allegiance, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, roll call, please.
Mr. Cummings?
Here.
Ms. McGuire?
Here.
Mr. Spencer?
Here.
Mr. Palmer?
Here.
Mr. Sutton here. Mr. Wusterbarth?
Present.
Ms. Richards?
Here. Do we have any agenda additions? I know there was something with the finance, but that's a little bit later on. But anything on the regular agenda?
No.
Okay. We have two public comment sections. This first public comment is reserved for agenda items only. You must fill out a comment card in order to speak, and you are limited to 4 minutes. Do we have any comment cards?
Yes, we do.
Okay.
The first one is Kevin Kubik.
Okay. In regard to which agenda item?
Consent agenda minutes.
Okay.
JD, the clock is not on the screen.
And before you get started, Kevin, JD, make sure the clock is on the screen. Okay. All right, and then if you could state your name, even though I just said it.
My name is Kevin Kubik. I live in Oscoda.
Okay.
Yeah. The reason why I'm here tonight is commenting here at the first public comment section is about the agenda minutes. And so I noticed that there's a lot of information that's left out of the board comments and staff comments and public comment section. I didn't know if that why that occurs. So I would like to preface these board comments by acknowledging that these items were discussed at the previous meeting. However, they were omitted intentionally from the agenda minutes. Jamie McGuire spoke about how she had previously had to go to the board about the township clerk being 6 months behind on the bank reconciliations, and the accounts weren't balancing, and because she was afraid of the accounts being overdrawn, that the treasurer once again found herself in the same position and was asking for the board to help. The treasurer stated that she has emailed the superintendent, but she didn't respond back to her emails. Two incidents caused her to bring to the board's attention. When she was growing up, she was told, quote, if you see something, you say something, and at this point, you need to say something, end quote. First thing was this week they received back 3 checks for overpayments from vendors that we paid way above what we were supposed to. Mr. Palmer made a correction to the general ledger, and it didn't get done in over a month. The only reason that it got done was because the treasurer sent an email to Mr. Palmer about it, and he must have notified Josh. Jamie thanked former Deputy Treasurer Vicky and the current Deputy Treasurer Jane for the work that they have done. Jane has taught the clerk how he's supposed to do his job properly. And overpayments refunded to us and brought back to us $20,735.81 to date. Wex Finance charges paid and charged for only 4 months that he is bearing the finance charges and the expense line items is almost $4,000. He is posting invoices and using statements as invoices. He is making payments from packing slips and then paying them again when the invoices arrive. A couple of those instances occurred 5 days apart. You think you would have remembered paying that. Overrides to the BS&A system. You cannot by law spend money that has not been budgeted. By law. It's not a policy, that's the law. Overrides have been done in the BS&A system. It asks you if you are sure you want to use that invoice number because it has already been used. Adding a date or a customer number, etc., to the invoice so it changes and it will go through and it will get approved. Posting financial charges from multiple vendors to the expense accounts is a big no-no. I am sure that is messing with all the department heads' budgets. I would like to see a work session or something happen. One of the overpayments to the local vendor was $14,000. She has been waiting since the December 6, 2022 meeting to pay back the general fund from money they borrowed, but she needs a journal entry to be done, but we fired the only person that could help him with that journal entry. She can't move that money back. She has bond payments that are due next month, and hopefully we have the money to pay those. And last but not least, Kratos. I am sure everyone remembers that. We thought we received the money back for that, but we did not. It turns out that the money we received was for DTE summer tax bills. So that money is still owed, and that's over $40,000. So I would like the board to help me do something about this. I told Tammy about Kratos when I found out, and it was back on 2/20. The only other thing for board comment is that tomorrow is the last day to pay winter taxes, so stop in and see us. Mr. Woosterbarth, you had a comment, and your statement was, I have one, Josh. I would like at the next meeting you respond to these accusations, end quote. That was not put in as under your comment. Mr. Sutton also had one in response to yours, and that comment was absolutely. That's what he stated. Jamie said that she would like the board to sit down because I have every invoice that this talks about. Also in the email that was sent to the board, Josh, you gave a story that it was a Visa payment that he had talked to Tammy and I about, which is incorrect. Because if you actually looked at the document that was posted with it, it was for the auto parts place. It wasn't even a Visa payment, two totally different things. So you're going to explain this because it isn't on the agenda. And as a board, do you feel that you are doing your due diligence by failing to respond to the allegations and accusations against the township clerk? I personally want to know.
Out of time. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, any other comment cards for the first public comment?
Yes, I have Larry Holland, and it is regarding the resignation item.
So basically in regard to the resolution. Okay.
I'm going to focus in on that resignation here. My name is Larry Holland, Oscoda resident. First things first, I always like to read a good definition because we have to have the pretext and the context. Teamwork. Gotta love that word. Teamwork. Oof. The combined action of a group of people, especially when and efficient. Effective and efficient. And what I'm seeing on the township board isn't necessarily anything more than some efficiencies, and a lot of effectiveness needs to be worked out here. Simple things, even the way that we communicate with one another, which some of the township officials do. A couple of hours of my commentary inside their offices. Leading into resignation, we may see here tonight an attempt to be an appointment process after the resolution to accept resignation of our supervisor may or may not be accepted by the board. The board does not have to accept the resignation tonight. They can deny it. If they choose to accept it, it triggers state law under the Michigan election law that establishes that there can be an appointment process or a special election can be handled through this process. We're not going to be doing our community any justice by immediately appointing somebody from who's left on the board. We should go ahead and let the tolling process take place. About 45 days, we could have a special election, and then we could have the best candidate that is brought forth by our community so that we may be able to vote on this. You guys do not have to take any action beyond the acceptance or denial of this resignation resolution, but at the end, we still have to look forward with the idea that the underlying issues still exist. They need to be resolved in which we're able to communicate with each other on a regular basis on the merits of the job that we're doing. Treasurer, clerk, they really only have to communicate to each other on 6 bulleted items So there could be a whole bunch of emails to where they go back and forth and just copy and paste the 6 items back and forth, and it gets the job done, and it removes the personality out of the scenario. What we see time after time in our community is people coming and going, but the process of conflict remains, and the process of conflict should be removed, and the process of getting things done should be adopted. And that's focusing on what the state law says, and then it's focusing on what the job duties entail, and how we feel and what the personality conflicts are relatively low. I can honestly say that at times I've probably not liked several of you guys, but I still am able to communicate to you effectively. I'm still able to get the job done and move forward. At the end of the night, at the end of the day, or the night here tonight, we need to start making decisions as a community that takes the community as a whole into perspective. There's a lot of things going on here that we cannot continue to have conflict, lose professionals, and otherwise not get the job done. Resignations include, off of our EIC committee, we had a loss on that board, which was personal in nature, which that one's been replaced. We now have potentially Todd Dickerson, our economic development director, coordinator, whatever. 90-day notice triggered. And then we have a supervisor that says that she's on Survivor Island, essentially. She shouldn't be feeling that way, and she needs some support. And I really hope that the board doesn't accept her resignation tonight, even if she chooses not to show up to the meetings. At the end of the day, we should put this to a vote in our community and get the best possible candidate if it goes the other way. And we can get that job done peacefully.
Time's up, thank you. Any other comment cards for the first public comment?
Yes, I have one more. That's Miss Kelly Brown, financial question.
In regard to a financial report that's in the agenda?
I believe so.
Okay, I mean, again, it has to be a specific question on an agenda item.
Oscoda. Yeah, so today I wanted to ask you a couple of questions. I know the last meeting I wasn't able to attend, but I watched it, and there were some questions. I see we're paying DTE on the financials. I went through the line items. Are we still paying Kratos as well? Because I wasn't clear after last meeting where we stand on that. Does anyone know?
No, we aren't.
As far as I'm aware, Kratos has been discontinued a long time ago. So, no, we're not.
Okay, because I wasn't sure, because I know we said we got the money back, so does that mean then that DTE is going to credit us if we try and go back after that money again? Or are we going to open up a new?
With all due respect, Kelly, that's not a question in regard to an agenda item. We're not.
Okay, sure.
We're not talking about Kratos right now, so.
Okay, sure. It was brought up about, and I had just met with Josh and FOIA this information for Wex Bank. Can anyone explain what our process of payables is? Because I was looking into some Wex Bank invoices that came up, and we had about $3,800 in finance charges. But don't we do a check run approval and the next 2 weeks check run? Isn't that what you guys go through when you go through these payables on the agenda? Like the prepaid March 1st, the prepaid, and then the check run. So we shouldn't have any overlap where we don't have approval from the board. Is that correct? Is that how that process works?
Right.
It is. Bill's saying yes?
Yes.
Okay. So, and are all of our bills that we pay that are on our check runs and everything that's listed in the packet, are they all net 30? Do we have anything that requires us to pay it sooner than 30?
Yes.
We do? Mm-hmm. Is Wex Bank one of those?
That would be a Josh question, but I know there's items from Old Orchard Park that we used to have to process right away.
Okay, so what's the net on that one, Josh, if it's not 30?
15.
So if we do a 2-week check run and we do a 2-week prepaid, we should still get all those in, right?
Yes, Wex has to go in on the 1st.
So how did that come about that we had all that interest charge? Do you know from prior? And is that still like, is it an overlap from month to month? Because we had them in March, June, and September, and then November last year. And we don't obviously have March's billing yet, so I didn't know if it's a quarterly thing or if these were just paid late.
Those were still going through the purchase order process instead of account payables.
So you'll
now
just pay
payables
late.
allows it to go in on the 1st as a check run by itself, so it can
So is the
be mailed
PO
out.
process, is that part of your prepaid approval that you ask for every 2 weeks?
Yes.
Okay, so it would have been in either the prepaid or the check run. So we still would have hit the 15 days. In theory, if it was done on time.
Yeah, it has to go out right on the 1st.
Okay, okay. That was the question I had. I didn't understand the payables. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comment cards for the first?
No.
Okay. Again, there is a second public comment section at the end of the agenda that does not have to be an agenda item. It can be any topic whatsoever, and you are limited to the same thing, but you don't need to do a comment card, okay? So just remember that at the end. So next on is our consent agenda. First on, we have the regular meeting minutes of February 27th. There were a couple changes that were made, and those were emailed out, and I believe handed out to the board as well. Are there any additional comments or,
Are they going to identify those just because, or no?
I'm sorry, what?
Are they going to identify the ones that were changed like we usually do, or?
Well,
I
we
believe-
can, yeah.
Mhm,
The
sure.
changes were others present, Rick Freeman and Catherine Lynn were added. And Mr. Palmer had a correction on Iosco County Road Commission invoice, the last 3 digits of the GL number changed to 572. And we had a correction on the audit request, as Ms. McGuire voted nay. And we had a correction to Ms. McGuire's comments from finance to accounts payable.
Okay. And I believe you are also requested that additional, there's been a question over time in regard to board comments. I never, when I review and give my suggestions to Josh, I never look at anybody else's public comment card, board comments. I feel that it's each board member's responsibility to reach out, and if it wasn't put in like they think it should be, then they need to get with Josh on that. So that's kind of how I've always operated, because I'm not going to correct what he said that you guys said. So that being said, I know that Jamie had reached out and requested that more of what she had said during her board comment be included in the board packet, or in the board meeting minutes. And I believe that that was what one of the comments were earlier.
Right.
During, so I guess my suggestion, and this is what I've done, correct me if I'm wrong, Josh, but I have basically summarized mine, re-summarized them from the meeting, and then sent them to you specifically like I felt that I said them, or re-listened to myself. So I guess my suggestion would be that Jamie did that as well. But
Well, and the big thing, just so everybody knows, and I brought it tonight, is for the clerk, according to the handbook and MCL, and a charter township does synopsis of the proceedings of the township board prepared by the clerk and approved by the supervisor, showing the substance of each separate proceeding must be published at least once a month. That's under MCL 42.8, and I am not allowed to directly quote any comment, because then I am liable if I'm stenographing it and I miss a word. We are liable. So for the clerk, you're supposed to take just a synopsis, which is the main point that the person's trying to make in that discussion. Just so everybody knows, I do have those available if anybody would like it.
well, I will let you guys hammer that out. So I think the whole point of making board comment is so that it's in the minutes. Otherwise, what would be the point of making board comment? But that being said, is there a motion to approve?
I have just one.
Okay.
I did make a board comment on Jamie's allegations to Josh that I wanted Josh to respond to the treasurer. I don't know, so just a response to the treasurer by accusations by the clerk.
Okay. So you would like yours amended as well?
I'd like mine amended because it wasn't none. I did
Right.
make that statement. Mr. Kubik did
Okay.
call out.
So, I guess, are you wanting to approve the minutes, or do you want to postpone the approval with those changes to board comments being brought back at the next meeting?
I just want my comment. I don't speak for anybody else.
Okay.
I'd like a synopsis of mine be put in. I can shorten it.
Okay. All right, so again, do you want to table? Or what do you want to do for the regular meeting minutes? Would you like to get those changes? I mean, everything else was good, except for the board comments. So, approve them with that being added?
Let's approve them at the next meeting.
And approve them at the next meeting? So, okay. So we'll postpone the approval of the February 27th. Okay.
Fair enough.
Great.
So we can see what is actually being said.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. So then moving on to finance, we have payment of bills. You had an addition there, I thought, didn't you?
Yeah, I
Josh?
did need to add an addition as E under finance for check run 22823 in the amount of $533.91,
Okay.
which was the tax checks.
Sorry, I should have asked that question when we started with consent agenda.
What
Okay.
is it? I'm sorry?
Those
The
were
check run that you
the
emailed
tax
out.
checks you
The
gave.
tax checks, 228,
They're, I thought they were on there.
533.91,
They're on there.
Were they?
Yeah,
under tax account report?
yeah.
Oh, I just didn't see the total.
Okay, so it just
said
didn't have an
tax.
amount.
Didn't have the amount.
Huh?
Yeah,
Didn't
it
have the amount on
Right.
the agenda.
Okay, so it's already on there.
Yeah.
Okay, so first on is the prepaid. March 1st, we have $6,549.82. Were there any questions or comments on those? Okay, then we have March 7th, prepaid, $153,093.16. Any questions or comments on those? And then on the March 14th run, the amount on that is $174,145.28. Any questions on those? And then there was the tax account report that was submitted. There just wasn't a total on the consent agenda. That amount was $533.91. Any questions or comments on that?
I have actually a couple comments.
Okay?
And I just want to let the audience here know and the audience at home, with all the discussion last board meeting, we had a couple of the board members had ported out some of the language that they were citing to be law, and it was described to be that the treasurer was supposed to give the clerk a list and a total of the receipts for the tax account, those type of things. So Mr. Palmer pointed that out, and so did a couple other people, and I said that I would get with the auditor and get an answer. And I did, and I just wanted to share that with the audience as well. What he told me is that there is no specific law that I'm aware of for this. However, considered it best practice for the clerk and the treasurer's department to work together. Therefore, a summary of all the checks should be given to the clerk so he can enter them into the accounting system. He doesn't actually enter them into the accounting system because we have programs from BSNA that does it actually for us. So I wrote back and forth with him with some ideas of how to handle it for best practices. And he said there's technically no right answer to what constitutes best practice. But yes, as long as he has access to print the summary reports with backup information that would satisfy the requirement. However, more transparency would be beneficial and further strengthen the controls of the township. So I wrote him back and I said I was 100% about transparency. So I included the checks, the refund checks, not to any of the taxing entities, but anything that's outside of distributing the tax money to the board packet so that it's aware and the board can look at it and take a look of the different checks that we write. I also have more of the backup information for those than what's just included in the board packet with me tonight. If anybody has a question, I'd be happy to tell you what I know about it.
Okay. Are there any questions on, after Jamie provided that, any questions on that tax account report? And what's in
I
the
would
packet?
like to ask Jamie just one question.
Okay.
Not a criticism, I don't understand, some of the checks that were issued are for refunds.
Mm-hmm.
And how does somebody qualify for a refund on the property tax?
There's a couple different ways. I kind of listed them last time. Board review, if their value gets changed, it creates, and they've paid their summer taxes. Let's say they didn't have 100% homestead on their home. Mm-hmm. So, and they've already paid their summer tax. So then once I make that change, then that creates an overpayment in the system. So then what I go do is I make the refund change, and then that sends the check to the accounts payable system to my overage account, and then we process it through the accounts payable and issue them a check.
Okay, so anything that like would come through the board of review, there would be documentation from the board of review
yes.
that authorizes that?
Yes.
Right? Okay.
Yep, the PREs, however, now they can be done at any point. They don't have to wait for the board of reviews.
Okay.
That's a new law. One of the other things, and actually you'd be surprised how many people fill their checks out incorrectly, whether they're overpayments or whatever, or pay the wrong parcel too, and they really meant to pay a different property tax. And so then we try to accommodate the residents, and if it creates an overpayment, then we keep all that backup paperwork and we reissue them their refund also.
Okay.
So-
I'm just curious, I get my tax statement and I tried to figure out a way that I could pay less, but so far I haven't come up with that, so.
You figure it out, let me know.
Right, yes.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
So we can expect to see these on all board packets, or at least once a month now? So that we
Not
know.
right now, because we're no longer collecting taxes. I've turned the tax rolls over to the county, so,
So you only have to do
the
this like
only-
twice a year?
pardon?
You only have to write these checks twice a year?
Oh, no, I'm during the whole tax seasons, like July will start my next tax season, and when somebody has an issue and I have to issue a refund, then it'll
So
happen.
she means there'll be like a lull for, it won't be
It's gonna
every
be a
month.
lull, yeah.
It'll be till the next bill.
But when
the
you
next
start
tax
writing them
bills,
again,
yes.
then you'll just...
Yes, then
yeah.
there'll be more on the tax roll, or on your board.
And then what documentation are you associating in BSNA? I know there was a question about documentation and backup documentation. And you stated that you hadn't been doing it, that you were going to start doing it. What are they looking for to have in there?
So like for overpayment that I'm going to do in there, what happens, and I don't know if they can zoom in on this, but with each batch that we have with taxes, and I can pass it down for everybody to see it, it has the batch number for every deposit that we do. So it has the date, the receipted date, whether it was the counter, the mail, escrow checks, or bank checks. And then we have the total taxes that were paid. Then the next line is overpayments, and then the total amount of the deposit. So if they have four properties, and let's say one of their properties they forgot was an escrow, and they write the check for the whole amount, I'm going to deposit the whole amount, but I'm going to refund them the difference for the escrow because it's already paid by their bank. And so we list those separately with their parcel numbers on here, and then Jane gives this to me. I key it into the cash receipting system, so it records the overage, and then we write the check out of the accounts payable back to the homeowner.
So in the instance of, like we were talking about, you were saying that they didn't realize that part of the property wasn't homesteaded.
Right.
If that was brought to your attention after the fact, do you still have to go back and update the backup information for those checks in the system so that they know, so we know later what it was for?
Actually, doesn't work like that, because the tax deposit, if it balanced, there wouldn't be an overpayment to begin with, but once the PRE was issued, it would create the overpayment, and yes, then we would process it correctly that way.
So you're saying that as long as it says in the system that it was homesteaded, then the system will catch it automatically that they're overpaying?
No.
So if it's after the fact, then you have to write them a check later on after everything has been cleared.
Right.
That would be a different set of documentation, but it would still tie back to the original check.
Correct.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, any other questions?
Yeah, I have one.
Okay.
And Jamie, thank you for this information. But the second thing about, one of the comments that I made when this was brought up at the last meeting was both you and your deputy were signing the checks, the disbursements.
Correct.
Okay. And I understand there's a third party, or it used to be, Mr. Schaefer was on that account?
The
in the backup?
superintendent is our backup, because if one of us is ill or on vacation and a check needs to be written,
Well,
they're the
what
only
I-
one authorized.
What I would request, just for the check from outside of your office, is it should be one person from your office and the superintendent signing any disbursements. That just creates a control.
Technically,
rather
I
than
can be the only one signing it by law, but I have a dual signature on it for that reason.
And I would like to see, if the superintendent is on that, somebody outside your office just verifying. It's
I'll
just a
consider
control. Thank you.
Okay, any other questions on that point? All right, then back to the consent agenda. We are actually going to postpone the February 27th approval, but everything else stands as is. So with that, I would take a motion to approve the consent agenda with the postponement of the February 27th meeting minutes.
I move that we accept the consent agenda with the postponement that we just described.
Support, Spencer.
Okay, there's a motion by Mr. Cummings, support by Mr. Spencer. Roll call, please.
Mr. Wusterbarth?
Yes.
Ms. McGuire?
Yes.
Mr. Cummings?
Yes.
Mr. Sutton, yes. Mr. Spencer?
Yes.
Mr. Palmer?
Yes.
Ms. Richards?
Yes, motion carried. We do not have any subcommittee reports and project updates, correct? All right, then moving on to the superintendent's report. First on is the invoice for Ferguson meter pit base plates. Tammy.
and Waterworks for the purchase of meter pit base plates and miscellaneous components for the 300 water service locations proposed this year. The cost for these items comes to $21,000 and is reimbursable through C2R2 funds. I would request that the board approve the invoice from Ferguson Waterworks in the amount of $21,000 to be paid from Fund 591-000-974.000.
Okay, are there any questions on this invoice or discussion, or?
Didn't we just vote to approve the purchase of a bunch of meter pits themselves?
Yes, these are the parts that go with.
They left out the accessories?
No, they went through their inventory first to make sure that they didn't have extras that we could purchase less. So
we're not buying as many plates as, or we are?
we are.
Okay.
They wanted to inventory first, just to make sure we didn't have an
Two
overabundance.
separate purchases.
I'd move to approve the payment to Ferguson Waterworks invoice number 171671 in the amount of $21,000 to be paid from Fund 591-000-974.000.
Is there support?
Support, Sutton.
And to be reimbursed by the C2R2 funds once available.
So amended, to be reimbursed by the C2R2 grant funds when they become available.
Okay, there's a motion by Mr. Spencer, which was amended by Mr. Palmer, and supported by Mr. Sutton.
I have a question.
Okay.
The fund account that's in here, what expense is that, 974?
Yes.
Yes.
No, I,
Water meters capitalized. It would just in the capital improvements. Let me double check.
okay. So we're going to pay it out of that fund and then it's going to get reimbursed?
Yes, because when we do the C2R2 reimbursements, that's, if this is ever audited, we have to do them all at the same time. So when this invoice is turned in for reimbursement, if we have paid it already, it has to be, they have to coincide together.
So C2R2 will be reimbursing the township?
Yes, because Rick's planning on doing, I think he sent an email out this morning. He's planning on doing another reimbursement request because we can only do one a month.
Okay.
So this will be included with that.
Any other questions, or? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Mr. Palmer?
Yes.
Mr. Wusterbarth?
Yes.
Ms. McGuire?
Yes.
Mr. Cummings?
Yes.
Mr. Sutton, yes. Mr. Spencer?
Yes.
Ms. Richards?
Yes, motion carried. Next is the Ferguson meter reader purchase request, sorry.
Okay, your packet contains a price quote for 300 meter readers for the upcoming water main phase projects for 2023. As with the last few miscellaneous meter and meter pit parts, these readers will be needed to be ordered as soon as possible in order to have them available for the upcoming season. The total cost for these items is $40,239 and can be reimbursed through the C2R2 funding. I would ask that the board approve the order and purchase of 300 meter readers totaling $40,239 to be paid through C2R2 funds after reimbursement has been requested and deposited into the township's checking.
Are there any questions for Tammy on that one?
Are there any other accessory bills for these doggone meter pits?
I don't know. I'm sorry.
Any other questions besides Mr. Spencer's? Okay, hearing none, is there a motion to approve?
I would move to approve bid number B081653 in the amount of $40,239 for the purchase of additional accessories in the form of meter readers from the township's checking account to be reimbursed from C2R2 grant funding when it becomes available.
Support. Palmer.
Okay, there's a motion by Mr. Spencer, support by Mr. Palmer. Roll call, please.
Mr. Spencer,
Yes.
Mr. Palmer,
Yes.
Mr. Wishtabarth,
Yes.
Ms. McGuire,
Yes.
Mr. Cummings,
Yes.
Mr. Sutton, yes, Ms. Richards.
Yes, motion carried. Next, number 3 is the Oscoda Water Main Phase 5 pay application number 4.
Hey, if I could just interrupt one moment. Mr. Freeman just sent me a message saying that should be it for the meter pit parts. So you know.
Good. Thank you, Mr. Freeman.
Okay, your packet contains the 4th pay request in the Phase 5 water main project in the amount of $215,349.11, leaving a total of $1,114,235.19 remaining on this project. I would ask that the board consider approving the 4th pay request to Elmer's Crane and Dozer in the amount of $215,349.11 to be paid from the C2R2 funds after reimbursement is requested and deposited into the township's account.
Okay, does anybody have any questions on this? Okay, hearing none, is there a motion to approve?
I'll make a motion to approve the pay request number 4 from Elmer's Crane and Dozer in the amount of $215,349.11 to be paid from the C2R2 funds once they are available in our account.
Support Cummings.
Okay, there's a motion by Mr. Palmer, support by Mr. Cummings to approve pay application number 4. Roll call, please.
Ms. McGuire,
Yes.
Mr. Wishtabarth,
Yes.
Mr. Palmer,
Yes.
Mr. Sutton, yes, Mr. Spencer,
Yes.
Mr. Cummings,
Yes.
Ms. Richards.
Yes, motion carried. And number 4, dust control RFP for 2023.
Okay, the township typically contracts for annual dust control to be performed in May and July. Your packet contains the invitation to bid associated with the 2023 road dust control. Based on this proposed RFP, the township would be accepting bids until Friday, April 14th, 2023 at noon. This is structured to then be back in front of the township board for approval at the next meeting, which would be April 24th, 2023. Advertising for the dust control RFP requires township board approval.
Okay, does anybody have any questions? I know we do this every year, so.
Why does it require township board approval to go out for bid?
The board needs to approve me to do that, to solicit bids.
I move that Tammy be approved to go out and get RFP, or advertise the RFP for the 2023 dust control.
Can I make one
Yep.
request first? In the proposal form here that goes with this, it's mentioned in here that because we had this problem in previous years with half loads, that we add a line in here for a cost for the half loads. I think we talked about that last year, but I think that would help if it's added into the RFP in this form so that it's specified what the price will be for partial loads.
I would add
that.
Mr. Palmer's
Okay.
request to my motion so that it's in there for you.
Okay, I will support that motion. So there's a motion by Mr. Spencer with the addition of adding a line item for half load on the bid document itself, and supported by Ms. Richards. Any further discussion? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Mr. Palmer,
Yes.
Mr. Sutton, yes, Mr. Wishtabarth,
Yes.
Ms. McGuire,
Yes.
Mr. Spencer,
Yes.
Mr. Cummings,
Yes.
Ms. Richards.
Yes, motion carried. Now moving on to the resolutions and ordinance section on the agenda. I see that Nicole has moved over. So first under ordinance amendments is A, 6.34 food trucks, mobile vending units.
Okay, I'll go through the changes one by one and let me know if you have any questions. With the food truck ordinance, all we needed to do was add an allowed zoning district. When it was originally written, it was B1 was allowed, and now B1 is gone, and State Street Business Neighborhood has replaced it. So we're just trying to delete the one district, put the new one in, and then we've added maps with locations on township property where the food trucks are allowed.
Okay. Did anybody have any questions on that one, the 6.34?
So we're changing it from one zoning label to a different zoning label. Would it be better to have generalized verbiage in there?
So there's several districts that food trucks are allowed in. That's just one zoning district that we need to remove and replace with.
Right, but if we say instead of having all of the zones listed in the ordinance, if we just say whichever zones are approved in their individual zoning ordinances, that way it's just a reference back to another document that tells whether or not it's allowed in that zone, rather than changing 15 documents every time. You just change the one and they all reference it.
Okay.
Well,
No, so it's not allowed in
B1 no
residential
longer is-
Right, so
zoning.
B1 had to be removed, but
Right.
instead of replacing it with E1 or whatever the new code for that district is, the State Street Business District.
SSBN, the State Street Business Neighborhood.
Instead of replacing it with SSBN, we just replace that whole section with reference the individual zoning areas and see if your truck is allowed, or whatever you want to do is allowed in that specific zoning area.
So if we did that, then we would still have to change the ordinance, because if it's allowed in, non-existent area, then we would have to go into that zoning district within the zoning ordinance and amend that portion of it.
So it
Either way,
doesn't-
something would have to be amended.
So does it say currently in those sections that you're referencing, does it already say that food trucks, as an example, are allowed in those areas?
It does not. It just is in the food truck ordinance.
Okay,
So you're
fair enough.
suggesting putting that it's an allowed use in that. But again, if B1 is deleted or B2 gets deleted, we still have some B2. Then we would have to go in and amend to whatever the new district is called.
Fair enough. It's fine either way. I just was wondering if it would maybe save us time
You
in the
always
future.
have those questions.
He likes that.
Jeremy.
Do you need us to approve each?
Do you want them separate or all at once?
application, or-
So this is just the first read on all of them?
Exactly, right.
Yep, I don't need,
She doesn't really need an approval.
Right.
Just, yeah, unless I guess
just
there was
unless you
something-
want something changed.
Unless there was something drastic to take back to the
Right,
board. Okay.
right. So the next one is Article 8, Zoning Board of Appeals, Section 8.3.3. And this one had to change a little something in it. It was brought about by our attorney. Bear with me here. There were 6 conditions listed in order to obtain a variance, and we had to remove one of them because it's for the type of variances that we don't do. So it's kind of housekeeping, cleaning up some of the language since maybe this was implemented, and the Zoning Enabling Act probably changed at some point between this being implemented and now. So it's just staying caught up with the current law.
Okay.
Very good.
Okay. And the next one.
The next one is the Code of Ordinance, Chapter 10, Article 7, recreational marijuana establishments prohibited.
So this one is just purely housekeeping, because we now allow recreational marijuana. This did not get deleted out of the Code of Ordinances, and this request is just to delete that whole section.
Okay.
And with the next one, Chapter 26, Article 3, installation, maintenance, and/or repair of sidewalks. The amendment we made there is, it's within the first paragraph, essentially, second paragraph. The last sentence of it stated that it shall not be required of any property owner to remove snow and/or ice on a seasonal basis, defined as starting on November 1 to May 1 of each year. If you go to the sentence below that, it does require homeowners to remove snow, so we wanted to take that sentence out so it doesn't contradict, and it's the responsibility of homeowners and business owners to remove their snow.
So it is.
It is.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
you will shovel your sidewalks too.
Well, that
Any
is
other
what our
questions?
ordinance is stating.
Very good.
All right. Any other, any comments, I guess, that we want to give her to take back to the board?
So does that mean the township won't be doing the sidewalks downtown for the businesses like we used to do? So we bought that great big,
No, that doesn't mean that.
No.
oh, okay.
Nice try, though.
It's expensive.
No,
too.
I'm just want to make
I
sure.
saw it being
'cause-
used today.
Well, I had a couple business owners that were, I don't think they were on 23, that they used to get their stuff done and then it wasn't, maybe they were just too busy and hadn't gotten to it yet. But a few people had mentioned it to me. So hopefully that was just the case.
All right, so basically, no action on our part, and it'll go back to the planning commission, and you'll continue on.
So this is the first read, it just needs a second read now. The planning commission did their first read, did the public hearing. So the final step is board approval with the second read, and I can be back in 2 weeks for that. I do have to, I post it at the clerk's office if anybody wants to come in and review the changes. They are posted right outside the clerk's office with all of the proposed changes highlighted. So there will be a notice in the paper to let
Right.
residents know that that's where they can come in and view it.
Which, again, I think I mentioned this last time, we just do a simple thing of, good job, but the planning commission and you specifically, with all the posting and everything, have a lot more requirements. So again, thank you for your due diligence to do all the necessary postings and follow up and bring it back to us.
Sure, you're welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so with that, I guess you're sort of done with your section, but.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Until next time.
Until next time, right. Continue on.
Thank you, Nicole.
Thanks, Nicole. All right, so next on is Resolution 2023-03, which is the resolution to accept the resignation of the supervisor, myself. We received our letter from our attorney indicating how to handle this. It was done by way of a resolution that she prepared. That resolution is before you. I have been advised that although the statute doesn't state whether I can vote or not, she has advised that I not vote in regard to the resolution. I just would preface this by saying I did email out my letter on Tuesday, the 7th, I think, the 7th, and I did follow up the next day with an email to Tammy, with my thoughts on replacement. Although I appreciate your comments, Larry, I am hopeful that you accept this and pass this resignation. And my suggestion actually is that Mr. Palmer, again, I have no say in this, but no official say, but you know me, I'm going to say something anyways. I think that I would suggest that Mr. Palmer be made supervisor, and then that you post the open seat of trustee and accept applications, interview them, and make that recommendation within the 45-day window that would start clicking on basically March 18th. That's my suggestion. Obviously, you can do what you want with that. So with that, we have a resolution number 2023-03, which is to accept my resignation this evening.
I have some questions.
Okay.
I know you're suggesting Bill do that. Can he do that being a board member already? Or does he have to resign his position first and then be appointed?
The board would have to appoint him, and then the position would be open.
The trustee
The
position would
trustee
be open.
position would be
Until it
open if the
vacates it.
board
Right.
decided to appoint Mr. Palmer as supervisor.
But he doesn't have to give up his trustee seat before we appoint him?
Right.
No.
Okay, that's what I was just making sure.
And for clarification, this is until the next election, which is 2024, so just so everybody understands.
Right, they'd be
Okay.
finishing your term.
Exactly, my term, which is 2024. Any other questions?
Does other board members have any other thoughts? Well, I guess I shouldn't ask that. You're the supervisor.
For a couple more days. Any other comments or questions?
Yeah, just so I believe we accept your resignation, then vote on the resolution?
I believe that that would be what you're doing with passing the resolution.
Would it be one and the same?
It's my understanding that it's one and the same, but.
Okay.
Yeah, that's my understanding.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I want to thank you for your time, man.
Mm-hmm. Thank
I
you.
know that was a hard decision.
It was. And my letter is in the packet. I'm not going to go through and read it. I will make a couple board comments at the end, but it was a very difficult decision for me. Anybody that actually knows me as a person, it was a very, very difficult decision for me. So, but one that I think is in my own best interest. So, and that's sometimes what we have to make decisions based on. So. Okay, so with that, is there a motion?
Yeah, and I just wanted to comment that I feel very badly that of all the losses that you've experienced in the last year and a half, it's tragic for anyone, and I wouldn't wish that on anyone.
Thank you.
I would like to move that we, as a board, accept Resolution 2023-03, the resignation of the supervisor.
Is there support?
Support, Worcester Barth.
Okay, there's a motion by Mr. Cummings, support by Mr. Westerbarth.
Quick
And
point of
again,
order, do we need to have a motion to allow you not to vote?
yeah, I just thought of that as I started saying that for abstaining.
I'll move that Ms. Richards be allowed to abstain from the next vote on the resolution 2023-3.
Support.
Okay, so there's, first of all, there's a motion by Mr. Spencer and support by Ms. McGuire to allow myself to abstain from voting on this resolution. Roll call, please.
Mr. Wurstabarth?
Yes.
Ms. McGuire?
Yes.
Mr. Cummings?
Yes.
Mr. Sutton, yes. Mr. Spencer?
Yes.
Mr. Palmer?
Yes.
I can't vote on that yet. Mhm. All right, and then we're back to the motion of the resolution. Our motion passed, I'm sorry. Resolution 2023-03, there's a motion by Mr. Cummings, support by Mr. Westerbarth to accept that resolution. Roll call, please.
Mr. Spencer?
Yes.
Mr. Cummings?
Yes.
Mr. Palmer?
Yes, with much regret that this had to come to this.
Mr. Sutton, yes with regrets. Mr. Wurstabarth?
Yes.
Ms. McGuire?
No.
Motion passed. All right, thank you. Any other action at this time under that subject?
I guess I'd like to hear from Bill. You brought it up.
Can they do that?
Or anyone on the board.
I would be willing to fill the position if the board so chooses. I think a lot of things need to happen with this board. Changes need to be made. We need to find a way to work better together. As supervisor, I would try and intercede and see if I can't be a conduit to try and make that happen. Otherwise, I think we're just spinning our wheels. I probably would end up in the same position Ms. Richards is in. I think everybody on this board, we were elected by the residents of this township to do a job. And I don't think we're doing it to the very best of our ability here, especially of late. And I would hope that we can try and come together in some way and make this a more functioning board to do what we were elected to do. So if the board sees fit, I would be willing to finish out the term as supervisor.
Is there a motion or discussion? Or you can make a motion and then discussion.
Anybody else?
With the state law, if we don't appoint anybody, we have to have a special election, is that correct?
Within 45 days, yes.
So-
If nobody's appointed within 45
yes.
days. Yes.
If within the 45 days, then a special election
Yes.
would be enacted.
So they have the special election that's coming up in May already for the school, is that correct, Josh?
Yep.
Is that within the time frame, or is that outside of the
Ballots
time?
are already in my office, so we would have to cover that cost entirely.
Oh, okay.
And May is, I mean, that's more than 45 days, I would assume.
Right.
I'm not very good at math sometimes, but I
I
think
think it's
that's
super close, but
yeah.
yeah. I think Larry's got a order.
I will allow.
Podium.
If we are now moving to a non-agenda item through this motion, I was deprived the ability to comment on the issue of appointing Mr. Palmer onto the board at the beginning. If there was a line item on the agenda in which this would have been here, I'm sure there would be some commentary about that. I would just ask that if it's the board's pleasure to appoint Mr. Palmer, that they do so either through a special meeting in which the public is invited, or do it at the next meeting with an agenda item on the agenda. That's it.
Okay, thank you. Great. I mean, I suppose we should have had an action under a resolution, unless Lisa advised on that.
What she advised was that the board should do a process of how they would like to appoint both for supervisor, and if there were an open Board of Trustees position after that, they would have to appoint for that as well. That's why I sent out her opinion that we had already. Those processes that she gave were suggestions. She said ultimately the board could vote in any way they wanted to. They don't have to go out for advertisement. They can go for advertisement. It's basically going to be up to you guys to decide that.
Right, but in theory, we should have had an agenda item after resolution indicating action from acceptance of resignation.
Right. I didn't know that would be what would happen tonight. And Lisa had also suggested that the appointment be done by resolution. That's how she would like to see it. It doesn't have to be done that way, but she would like to see it done that way.
Okay, so with that, I would suggest we maybe have a special meeting. We have 18 hours that we have to give notice, so we could do that relatively quick if the board is available. I believe we have a work session coming up.
We could change the work session to a special meeting.
Okay.
And maybe talk about the process there and then take action possibly after that?
Well, it would have to, yes, we can have a discussion there.
Okay.
But I'll change it from work session to special meeting.
Is everybody going to be at the?
I was planning on it, but yeah,
When is
at
it?
the work session.
It's Friday morning.
But we would change it to a special meeting.
Yes. I had a good majority. I think I had 5 people for that.
Wednesday morning at 9 a.m., correct?
Right.
Yes?
Yeah, 9 a.m.
Everybody can make that? Okay.
Is it Friday?
I heard Friday.
No, it's Wednesday.
Oh, it's Wednesday, sorry, my mistake.
Yeah, the meeting is, or the proposed meeting was
No, it's on
Wednesday.
my calendar, I just said the right.
Okay, so would somebody like to make a motion that we hold a special meeting then on Wednesday?
I'll make a motion that we change the work session to a special meeting on Wednesday at 9 a.m.
Support Cummings.
Can we clarify that it would be to discuss the appointment of a current board member to trust or to supervisor?
Or the process of?
Or
Yeah,
process of?
the process of handling the resignation of the supervisor.
Do we want to change the meeting, or do we want to just have the special meeting and then go back into work session so that we can operate under work session rules instead of board meeting rules?
Oh.
I mean, if it was scheduled as a work session, we could add the special meeting before it and just have 2 meetings in a row.
But it wasn't scheduled, I don't know about anybody else, it wasn't scheduled for 3 hours. It was supposed to be a short session, maybe an hour is what I was hoping for. So,
All right, so we'll keep it as a special meeting, 9 a.m. on Wednesday, to discuss the process of the resignation of the supervisor, which I feel like I'm talking in third person or something, so, yeah, sorry. A little awkward.
You kind of are.
I kind of am. So there's a motion by Ms. McGuire, and I'm sorry, was there support
Yes.
by Mr. Cummings?
Yes.
Okay, and that special meeting will be in the library?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
All right, roll call, please.
Mr. Spencer,
Yes.
Mr. Palmer,
Yes.
Mr. Wishtabarth,
Yes.
Ms. McGuire,
Yes.
Mr. Cummings,
Yes.
Mr. Sutton, yes, Ms. Richards.
Yes, motion carried. All right, moving on to other, we have the Van Etten Lake weed control bid tabulation. I know that, Josh, you put that together and you included in just as an informational item, I'm assuming? Because we can't act on, I mean, that recommendation will be coming from the weed committee as to what to do?
Right.
Okay. So, I mean, just to remind everybody that we go out to bid every year, the lake manager does, for a new applicator for the, for weed control on Van Etten Lake. That's reviewed by the weed committee. They make the recommendation, it comes back to the board, and then we approve the contract. So we did receive the bids last week, and they were sent on to the lake manager and the weed committee. They will be getting back the recommendation, and that will be on the last meeting of the month. So that recommendation will go then. So next on would be other.
And I just, one correction, I think Josh handed out a revised bid tabulation, but I believe what's in the packet here is correct.
Was it correct?
Yeah, it was
Is that what
correct,
you're looking at right now?
as in the packet.
So the one that was in the packet was correct?
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
PLM is a low bidder.
Right.
Okay.
And they look at things not just low bid, they look at what the notice time and other things as well. But we'll get the recommendation from them.
Yeah, that's correct, incorrect.
Oh, okay, it's in here.
Okay, so then moving on to the Oscoda Rock Fest use request.
Okay, so you have a request once again for the use of Veterans Memorial Park. I would normally have taken care of this as I've been directed, if there's no rental monies for the property, but this request involves some services from DPW be involved, so I am bringing this to you for your approval.
Okay, so there was a request for some services, but then there was also a sponsorship offered.
Well, that usually comes with
That comes with
the
it to begin with, right? But what is the fee that we normally charge for that area? I was going to say, we don't normally charge a fee.
Normally, the board has approved me if there's not a monetary value involved, that I can take care of it myself, but because there are some requested services from DPW, such as trash cans, things like that, they put up snow fence, I would like your approval to do that.
That's the same as last year, though?
Yes.
Okay, that's not
Yes.
anything different.
Right.
Okay.
Okay, any questions? It's pretty straightforward to me.
I would make a motion to approve the request of the Veterans Memorial Park Foundation as presented.
Support.
Cummings.
Okay, there's a motion by Mr. Palmer, support by Mr. Cummings to approve the request as submitted. Roll call, please.
Mr. Spencer,
Yes.
Mr. Cummings,
Yes.
Ms. McGuire,
Yes.
Mr. Wishtabarth,
Yes.
Mr. Palmer,
Yes.
Mr. Sutton, yes, Ms. Richards.
Yes, motion carried. Looking forward to the event again this year. Okay, we are actually at the second public comment section on the agenda. Again, you don't have to have a comment card. You are limited to 4 minutes. And I'm starting in no specific order, but I usually start at one section. I ask for somebody, if you want to speak, raise your hand, and then I release you. You go to the podium, state your name for the press, and then you have 4 minutes. So start over on this side. Anybody for Clayton? Come on down. Yeah, I know you do. Yeah? Maybe you should switch to the other side.
No.
Okay. It's just a suggestion.
Good evening. My name is Clayton Jolly, and I've been a resident of this community for about 29 years now, more than a third of my life. And first thing I want to do is thank the board for terminating the employment of Todd Dickerson. I just thought it was too late, too long in coming. I'll make no other comments on that or why I feel the way I do, but I'm thankful that you did that. The other thing that I want to comment, again related to water, imagine that. But when I read in a newspaper that we are losing 48% of the water we purchase, losing it. Not reselling it, we're losing it. And I wondered why we aren't spending more time trying to find out where that water is going than we are finding out whether our treasurer is doing her due diligence, which she's done for 20 years now. I think that's a mistake or a different direction that this august body that we have gathered here this evening ought to pursue. Where's the water going? That's costing us money that can't be replaced. You can't sell it if you lost it. And if you're buying too much in order to replace what you're losing, you're doing something wrong. Does anybody have any idea how or where that water's going? Why do I always get that blank look when I ask a question? That the question's that difficult? Or
No, we don't want to
Come on.
interrupt you. Sir, we don't want to interrupt you. This is your 4 minutes.
Well, yeah, I know it. That's what I always hear. Okay, now interrupt me.
I can say we are taking it seriously. We do have F&V. We've had the last report that shows us, let's say around a 38% water loss. And if the report that we've seen and backed up with other municipalities around the country, that seems to be average for something of a system our size and the age. Now, that's not the right answer. I think, we need to challenge F&V and look at ways that we can detect water loss going forward. We're not doing a good job at that. And it's nothing against F&V at this time, but it's simply not in their contract. And that's something that we need to take up as a board going forward.
Yeah, it's really not good if we're compared to other communities and they're mediocre. I think we ought to try to be better than mediocre.
Well, there's also a cost-benefit analysis that you have to consider, because if, yes, we're losing a significant percentage of water, but if it costs us $20,000 to lose that water and it costs us $40,000 or $400,000 or $400 million to find the leak, well, we have to make a determination, because it is tax dollars, and we can't spend it frugally, or we need to spend it frugally. We shouldn't go out and just say, oh, well. I mean, in the research that we've been doing, I've found dogs that sniff chlorine that they can come up here and look for leaks. I mean, but they cost money. And so we're in the process with F&V of getting some processes in place so that we can help find those leaks and resolve it. It's not that we don't care, it's that we have to figure out what we're going to do to make it so that we can get it done cost effectively.
I understand that, but at the same time, looking at it from the direction you're talking about, if we have to send, let's say, $80,000, and it's costing us, what you said, $20,000 a year to lose that?
I'm just ballparking numbers.
Okay,
Those
then
are
in
not
4
official
years,
budget.
we've paid for it.
Oh, time's up, sorry.
We used up your time for you.
That's
But you said it was okay.
Thank you, Clayton.
All right, thanks, Clayton.
Yep.
All right, anybody else in the first section? No, okay, moving to the middle section, raise your hand, Larry.
Larry Holland, Oscoda. I promise it's the last time you're going to hear from me tonight. So on the water issue, just want to throw this out there. Every year, break the city into quadrants, put a flow meter on, select portions of the township, and then start adding up the people's water bills from the area that you have a flow meter on, and you'll start to find an easy solution to where the leaks are. But the actual problem that we've actually tested in different areas were water meters. One of the water meters happens to be mine at 5226 North US 23. I was severely underbilled. I'm waiting for somebody to catch it. It's not the treasurer's duty to do that, by the way. Treasurer has nothing to do with the water bills. It's F&V. I had an accident at my office which resulted in a ton of water flowing from the building all the way out to the road. My bill was under $100. And the reason why is because when the power got killed, also some other extraneous issue with the environment, the meter lost its data. That's a problem, because that means that it's not being billed, and we need to look into that. That's not why I'm up here. I just want to pass some information. I'm not going to read you any definitions. I'm not going to do any of that weird stuff. No one listens to that anyways. But you know, I wrote a song. It's kind of funny. I'm going to play it for you guys because it's funny. Yo, listen up, I got a story to tell about a place called Oscoda where music rebels dwell. Underground scenes where the love of music thrives. From hip-hop to punk, they keep the beats alive. The passion runs deep in every note they play. No fame, no fortune, just the music's way. Their beats are raw, their rhymes are real. From the streets of Oscoda, they make you feel. In this town, there's a movement that's on the rise of artists and poets who don't compromise. They're creating their sound, breaking down barriers. Their love of music, the ultimate carriers. So come on and join this underground vibe where the love of music will keep you alive. Oscoda is a place where the beats never stop and the music rebels will forever rock. So I want to throw this out there is that I didn't actually write the song. Artificial intelligence did. It was pretty cool. But I got excited about Rockfest, and then I started talking to other people about the lack of culture and music in our area, kind of like our art. So there's a group of us that have been pulling together even more bands to complement the area, to let more music come into the area. Rockfest is huge. We want to add another 30 to 40 bands that are going to be coming to Oscoda within the next 3 months, and they're already booked. And if you watch this thing on Facebook called Oscoda Underground, you'll start to see where they're going to be playing and what they're going to be playing and who they are. It's going to be pretty cool. Oscoda's going to rock year-round.
Thanks, Larry.
Thanks, Larry.
Anybody else in the middle section? Kathy?
Hi there, Kathy Woosterbarth, Oscoda. I wanted to actually remind the board that I do have a request for support for the two of the plumes that are occurring off of the base, and some remedial actions that we are suggesting for the Air Force. And from what I understand, those are still with the attorney, so that's fine. But I just want to keep that up there at the top of our minds. The other thing I want to talk about is the Oscoda Area Exposure Assessment. I've talked about that before, but I just want to remind people that they are still taking appointments for those. You need to call the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services. What I want to remind people is that just because you don't live in an area that you think may have been affected by PFAS contamination, we are all being affected by PFAS contamination through consumer products, through the any sort of stain-resistant clothing that we wear. I mean, it's being used in thousands and thousands and thousands of products. It's not just from firefighting foam from the base. So this is your opportunity to see what is in your body because of all of those other things, even if you haven't been exposed to it by the former base. So I encourage everyone to take this opportunity. I think I've mentioned before, the value of this testing is $1,000. It's not widely available. The only way you can really get it done without a lot of effort and expense is through a study like this. So please take the opportunity to do that. I do think that we're filling up those appointments, or the state is filling up those appointments. Right now they're scheduling through October. So please call and get your appointment. That number again is 844-464-7327. And again, you'll be, the Department of Health and Human Services will answer the phone, and they'll ask you about your eligibility and ask you some questions. There'll be a survey that you'll need to take, either online, or the staff will assist you when you go to your blood drawing appointment. And that survey actually asks you about, again, your exposure. So things that you eat, the things that you use, whether you consume fish and venison and all of that. So it's your opportunity to see what's inside of your body, and I really encourage you to do that. Thank you.
Thanks, Kathy. I just had one question. You mentioned the request from, is it from now? I'm just clarifying.
It is, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Great. In the middle section, anybody else? Kelly? Come on down. You are the next contestant.
You know, Ann, I feel bad that I didn't try to find that music.
Huh? I know. Yeah. Yeah. Where's that music, Larry? Last one that I can do. Yeah.
Yeah,
Huh?
is this yours? I know, I should have done the.
You are the next
Well, I was
contestant on
hoping
The
that they
Price is
would
Right.
have declined accepting your resignation, which is part of the reason why I wanted to come up here. One, I do want to ask, when are we going to get this Kratos money back? I mean, that's over $40,000, and we all sat there and clapped at a meeting thinking that it had gotten returned to us, and come to find out it was DTE tax payments. And can we put some policies or procedures in place so that these things aren't happening? Like, how did it even get changed to a different payable? Like, who authorized that? I know it never came up in front of the board. Isn't that something that you guys would have authorized?
We have to authorize it.
So how did it happen?
Well, technically,
That's
it
a
got
good
paid
question.
to DT. It didn't go to Kratos separately, correct? It went to DTE, and DTE paid. So a new vendor was not created. I guess just that's a short answer.
Yeah,
A
I
new
just don't
vendor wasn't
understand how
created. It
these
went to- yeah.
decisions, like, there just needs to be a level of oversight. And we keep coming back to this treasurer, and I've watched some prior board meetings, and she keeps getting hammered like she's doing something wrong. The word last week, or the ambush 2 weeks ago, and that's happened before by the clerk to another trustee sitting up on the board. And now we have questions about payables being overpaid, and we're getting checks back, but how do we know those checks that are getting cut and they're overpaid, that these people are paying us back? So I think we need to do a forensic fraud audit, whatever you want to call it, on all the payables, back to whenever they were taken over this term, with Josh, with the clerk. This money keeps coming up that there's issues in the treasurer's side, and she keeps having different municipalities, county clerks, county treasurers, the Treasurers Association, and I just feel that they're starting to show a level of disparate treatment towards the female members of the board. And I hate to even think that that's truly where this is going to go, but with Ann's resignation today, I mean, it's got to start getting recognized that you have to work together and treat each other equally. This is becoming very, very obvious when these things keep coming up and one person on the board gets questioned over and over. Contract suggestions were made by 2 female members of this board, and everybody else overrode them when they made perfect sense. And I just didn't understand why there wasn't more discussion and consideration for those ideas from the 2 female members of the board. And I just feel that there has to be some checks and balances. If you're going to come hard at the treasurer saying there's something that you want to see done, why aren't you coming hard at the accounts payable clerk? Why isn't he getting asked to have a forensic audit going back 4 years? We've got money, we don't even know who it got paid to and if they're going to send it back to us. We can't even reconcile those accounts. But yet we continue to hammer one member of the board that does money, but not the other one. Jamie, has anyone asked you about all those other things that you've brought up that sits on this board?
Nobody's contacted me.
Why? When Shouldn't you guys be like totally concerned that bills are being overpaid and money is just floating out there? Is it going back to someone? If it's not coming back to the township, is it just sitting on an account somewhere and now we don't have those funds available? We've got meter pits and grants and everything else. I just really feel, however you guys move forward, and Bill, I know you have wonderful intentions, but there has to be some equality on the board going forward. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Kelly. Great.
We'll be looking for your application.
All right, anybody else in the middle section? Raise your hand. Last call for middle section. Hearing none. We go to the far.
In the back.
Huh? Oh, sorry, I didn't see you back there. Or I didn't look that high, put it that way. Sorry. Sue is coming down. Come on down, Sue. If JD was quicker, he'd be playing the music from The Price is Right by now, but apparently not.
Okay,
Yeah.
good, I left my mic on.
Okay. And please
I
state
have
your
a
name.
different kind of comment. I just want to mention that here at Shoreline Players, we're trying to keep the arts alive in this community as well. And I want to thank everybody who came out and saw our latest production, Everybody Loves Opal. We have already rolled into our next production, which is Gaslight, and that'll be the last weekend of April and the first weekend of May. So we appreciate your support, and we hope you all come back for that. And in the meantime, we are bringing back our murder mystery dinner theaters. So, who bumped off Big Joey? Y'all need to find out. There'll be an interactive murder mystery dinner at Tate's Bill of Fare on Saturday, April 1st. Tickets will be available through Tate's, and that's all I wanted to share. Thanks. And the clock's running. See?
All right, thanks, Sue. And you have her last, you know her, Sue Miller. Sorry, you're supposed to state your name for the press, basically, so that's why I'm restating that. Huh? I know. I knew you kind of did, but I didn't want to get in trouble for not saying it. Okay. Far left? Okay, come on down, Brenda.
That's funny. Yeah, it is.
Better late than never. Yeah.
Hi, Brenda Godfrey, Oscoda. Vicki, Kevin, myself, Melinda, and now Ann. All excellent, dedicated employees who have left because of a toxic workplace led by an uneducated, unqualified superintendent. And now, without advertising, without board approval, she's hired an assistant. When did this board give Ms. Klein the power to do whatever she wants? Last I checked, you were her boss. This again shows what a circus this has become. Ambushing Jamie and the lack of respect coming from this board is not only unacceptable, but unprofessional and embarrassing. Go back and watch the last meeting, and you too can see what everyone is laughing at. 2,035. That's the number of citizens who voted to make Josh Sutton our clerk. In their eyes, you were the best candidate. They entrusted in you to carry out the responsibilities of the clerk. $3,864 in late fees. How and why? How do you explain the overpayment of bills, the $46,000 to Kratos? Where are these answers that Mr. Worsterbarth asked for at the last meeting? This is our money. Stop throwing it away. Your mistakes are inexcusable, and you would have been fired from any and every other employment if you lost $46,000 of their money. How much more will you lose in the next 2 to 2.5 years? With 2 employees in the clerk's office, I question why that office would be closed with both employees gone on vacation. To benefit the community, I would think only 1 employee would be on vacation at a time so the office would remain open. I have heard Josh repeatedly complain about how many hours he puts in. I, however, rarely seen him put in a 40-hour week. Why are you complaining about a job you ran for and wanted? I pride myself on being a producer in any environment I work in. I have always been able to increase sales and production to add to the bottom line while delivering accountability. I consult for companies and governments that are losing money to show them where exactly they are wasting money and how they can change that to make money. Those are your words, Josh. It is very apparent you are incompetent to hold this position, and you should resign. Whatever happened to Officer Von Heath? Any reason you haven't told the public he resigned from the police department back at the beginning of February? Did his resignation have anything to do with the on-duty misconduct complaint filed by a female against Officer Heath at the end of last year? MSP complaint number 22-1235, Oscoda Township Police Department complaint 22-3245. Thank you.
Thank you, Brenda. Anybody else in the last? Okay, Kevin?
Ann, my name's Kevin Kubik. I live in Oscoda. It's probably the last opportunity I'll get to talk to you, Ann, since you'll be resigning and be leaving. But for the person that takes your spot, did you ever hold any office hours at the township for the money that you were paid for being the supervisor?
I didn't post any office hours, no.
Were you ever at the township hall?
I was there a lot.
Okay, you just didn't technically have office hours, but you spent a lot of time.
Office hours, and then actually I didn't have an office that I felt comfortable meeting with people in, so I didn't post office hours.
Gotcha. At some point, though, you did have an office, and that was next to Miss Klein's a couple years ago, correct?
I believe August.
And then
20,
it moved
yeah.
down to Jamie's office?
Yes, and then I shared an office with Jamie, yes.
Gotcha. And Jamie, your office is located where in the township hall from the clerk's office?
Oh, down around by the back door, on the complete opposite side of the building.
Gotcha, it's just down the hall?
Yeah.
Thank you. Mr. Sutton, as far as your statements, I think it's just a lazy response as to why you don't include the details in your comments. Maybe you could include that, like, these comments are a summarization of comments, not exact statements or comments, and if you wanted to refer to YouTube or MIC TV board meetings for exact quotes, that might maybe help you. I find it interesting that you put so many details about Mr. Palmer talking about a bike path and so many details about Sue Miller commenting about the dates and times of the shows, but yet you leave out intentionally and omit all the facts of the things that you're doing wrong, or most things that Brenda got for your eye speak about at these board meetings. One of the things that I brought up last week that was left out was the fact that Ms. Klein, 3 officers had told her that the sergeant's exam that they used for promotional testing didn't really relate to police work. And they were able to convince Chief David, Tammy Klein, and Josh Sutton that that was a true statement. So I'd like to know, because last week I think I more than proved that the sergeant's exam had everything to do with police work. And I'd like to know why the 3 officers were dishonest with the superintendent, because I proved exactly what the test involved. And what I'd like to do is I'd like to be honest and tell the truth about why the test was eliminated and the reasons behind it. This was the sergeant's exam testing that I had talked about previously. And the people that signed up for the last sergeant exam was Tyler Leslie, Gerald Sobolewski, Greg Alexander, and Kevin Hart, the 2 officers that are standing in the back of the room right now, Officer Galahar, and myself, Kevin Kubik. Now, Tyler Leslie didn't pass that exam, and he's resigned from the police department, he's gone. Officer Sobolewski and myself were the only 2 officers that bought the book, studied, and we're the only 2 that passed that promotional exam and the test. Officer Greg Alexander, Officer Kevin Hart in the back of the room, and Officer Galahar are all the 3 members that represent the union of the police department. Now, why did those 3 officers lie and engage in dishonesty with the township superintendent and say that that testing did not include or have anything to do with police work? And the reason why is because all 3 of them failed that test. So let's be honest, and the reason why that test was gotten rid of is because if nobody passes that test, they can't be promoted. So instead of expecting better of our future leaders of the police department, we'll just eliminate the test, so then there's no requirement. And by eliminating that test, now Miss Tammy Klein can handpick Greg Alexander to become the next sergeant of the police department. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is the truth. So we'll wait and see. So Mr. Sutton, back to you. Like, I personally want to know, and the taxpayers of this community deserve to know, that the township clerk is competent to be able to do his job accurately and has honesty and integrity in the position that he holds. And the fact that you are intentionally omitting all of the previously mentioned facts from the meeting minutes causes concern to me and our fellow citizens. And I'll stop 7 minutes short this time. Thank you.
All right, thank you. All right, anybody else last call in the final section? Seeing none. Okay, that does wrap up our public comment section on the agenda. Sorry, let me find my agenda again. Where we're at. Okay, we are moving on to board comments. On the agenda. Do we have any board comments? I'm going to look to my right. Mr. Cummings?
I wish you the best, Ann.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks, Tim.
Yeah, we're sorry to see you go. I figured you'd stick it out to the bitter end. And real quick, the water thing, it's been bugging me for the rest of the meeting. We didn't get a chance to finish talking about those numbers, and now that I get the soapbox, I'm going to run my mouth a little bit. So, when we're talking about the water loss and the amount of money that it's going to cost, and I'm using fantasy numbers, these aren't actual numbers, but let's say that it costs us $20,000 for in water loss every month. And we start doing studies, and we bring in companies, and we find, we think we found the leak, and we spend $80,000. And we go out and we have that leak dug up and we fix everything, and that leak is all squared away. And the very next month, we're down to 42% water loss. Did we fix it? A little bit. But was it worth the $80,000 to fix that if we have to go back and find the next leak for $80,000 and the next leak for $80,000? And as the system continues to age, we're going to continue to have new leaks pop up. So the question is we have to find the balance between the amount of loss of water that's acceptable and the amount of money that we're willing to spend trying to find those little tiny leaks in there. And right now, Mr. Woosterbarth is going after F&V to get a better plan on doing those things. But at the same time, we still have to balance the money because we don't have an unlimited budget here. We can't just say, well, we're going to spend $5 million or every penny that's required to fix every leak in the system. And F&V made a very good point the other day, and I looked it up, and she's correct that the water systems are not hermetically sealed. They are going to leak. It's the way it is. You're putting pipes under the ground, and you cannot stop it. The ground moves, more in some cases than in others. Water flows around underneath the ground and moves things around, and those pipes will not last forever. It's the nature of everything that is man-made. It breaks down, and that's the way it is. So I understand that you're frustrated about the 48% loss. I am too. I pay taxes here too, and that's part of my money that we're losing up there. But I can also say that I'm not willing to just start signing blank checks to just tell everybody to go find the water leaks, and we're just going to spend an undetermined amount of money to find those, when we know that it's costing us $20,000 a month for the fantasy numbers for that 48% water loss. And I'm saying that we should try to find the bigger leaks. And I like Mr. Holland's idea. We've actually discussed some things, well, not Mr. Holland and I, but when we've been talking to F&V about adding some meters so that we can do that. And again, they're cost prohibitive because we get to come to the township and say, well, we want to buy this pump and we want to put this meter on it. And it's going to cost us $180,000 to dig this up and put this pump in there with that special meter on there so that we can maybe find a water loss. And we've got everybody else out here bashing us about how fiscally responsible we are not. But then we sit here and try to make these decisions, and then we get smacked the other way. Wow, you're not finding the water loss. Well, we're trying to find a balance here. So I appreciate you coming up here, and I expect to continue seeing you until we get it resolved to your satisfaction. And I'll be standing right next to you until that happens. But everybody else, remember that, we don't have an unlimited budget here, and we have to pick and choose what we're going to spend money on. And do we want to go spend that $180,000 on a water loss project, or would we like to fix up for a top field? And that's what I've got to say.
Thank you, Jeremy.
You're welcome.
Josh, did you have anything?
I'm just sorry to see you leave, and I did have some answers that Steve Woosterbarth requested.
And I guess I'm just going to ask, is there any specific reason why those weren't emailed or put in as an agenda item instead of being put in board comment?
Well, when I put it in the board packet, it's considered an ambush, and when we do it at board comment, it's considered glorification and wonderfulness. So which way would the board like me to present it? Because I did what was asked last time in the board, and I understand that me and Mr. Woosterbarth, I did present something, and it was brought to me that that was an ambush. At which point in time, the board asked that we follow the protocol, all of us, and bring it to the board. So that was brought to the board. It wasn't an ambush. It was put in a packet. It had plenty of time to be reviewed. And it was there for just a question. So, does the board permit me to do that now, or would you like that to be presented in memo form as a response, or do I respond in comment where it was the accusations were made against me in an ambush?
It was your request, Steve, I guess my
I think all
thought-
the accusations came out in board comment at the last meeting, so.
Although I will just say that the board comment is not in the meeting minutes, so it's kind of hard to go back and respond. So my thought would be, and this is part of what I've been trying to say, is that we, again, put it in writing and respond in writing and discuss that way. That is my suggestion. You obviously can do as you so fit.
Well, I'm just asking because there seems to be a double standard on the board.
Well, and that double standard has been applied by you as well, Josh, because I do recall a meeting that Mr. Palmer was not there, that you had a list of things in regard to the RAB board that he wasn't there to address. And I believe, Steve, you made the comment about an ambush and didn't like it. This has happened nonstop on this board on both sides. I'm sorry, but there's a lot of equal parties
No, I
here.
understand
So
that's what
all
I'm
I'm
asking.
saying is I don't think that this is going to perpetuate a solution. My suggestion is you allow Ms. McGuire to consolidate her comments from board comment into one thing, and then you respond to those, instead of a he said, she said emotional thing. That's, again, my suggestion, so how you can move forward. But again, I feel that it's fair, but.
I would be fine with that too. That's why I bring it to the board. And again, I would just like to say that we regret your loss. And as far as Ms. McGuire, we have had a meeting as to the point that Larry said he came in as a citizen to try to mediate the issues that me and Ms. McGuire were having just personally with each other. And we have set forth a new email for financial services that the board can send all questions to. It comes to myself, Ms. McGuire, and Tammy. So if your question is multifaceted in terms that there's one part of it in the treasurer's office, one in mine, or one in Tammy's, you're going to get a direct answer from all of us. And that's going to be a unified answer. In our discussion, we discussed just the fact of when we're answering people, and it can go down a rabbit hole when we're individually doing it. So we are bringing the financial committee together. We are reviewing the check runs as well as any of the other financial requests that are coming in. And I just wanted to convey that to the board and the citizens, that me and Ms. McGuire are putting our differences aside and working together. And I will reserve to put both things in a future meeting for a rundown of things proposed and solutions presented.
Okay, I would appreciate that.
Thank you.
Great. Moving down, Mr. Palmer, do you have any comments?
Not major comment. I just wish you the best in everything that you pursue, your career in real estate. I'm sure you'll do well in that, and just wish you the best in everything in your future endeavors.
Thank you. Steve?
And wish you the best. I'm very sorry for your losses over the last year.
Thank you. Jamie? Don't do it.
You already know how I feel about your resigning and what's led to that, so I'm not going to even comment on that. No comments tonight.
All right. It's up to me. My letter is in the packet. I'm not going to read it. It's in the packet. It's a combination of things, personally and kind of sort of what you just witnessed here. I just can't, it's just too much for me anymore. I was truly honored to be elected by this community, the people of this community. I can never say how much that meant, especially based on some of the things that happened a couple of years before. So that meant a lot to me. I had a lot of goals and objectives that I wanted to accomplish, and I'm very sorry that I wasn't able to do those. So I apologize to the public for that. That being said, thank you for your support, and I'm not moving out of Oscoda. I love this community. That's why I ran for office. I didn't do it, there's a lot of stuff on Facebook that says what we make and everything else. I mean, there are different pay positions. I do make $16,000 a year with no health care benefits or any kind of retirement. That does not pay my bills. I am a single salary household, so I have to do what pays my bills, and maybe doesn't cause me quite so much stress. That being said, I love Oscoda. Always will, always have, always will. And I'll be seen in other components like I have been for the last 15 years. I support anything I can in this community and will continue to do so. I just really and truly hope that this board can start working together in a cohesive manner. It's a great community. We need to accomplish some stuff. So, because before you know it, 2024 will be here in another election, and that's like right around the corner. But that being said, we are having that special meeting on Wednesday at 9 a.m. in the library to discuss how my resignation will be, or this position will be filled. So feel free to join if you would like. That is not a televised meeting, like like they are not. So if you want to attend, you need to be at the library. So that being said, I would make a motion to adjourn at 8:39.